So, there is life in plants, there's no motion, there is consciousness. But it's called, what I call, a basic consciousness. It only reacts. But there's life there, because if there was no life, the plants wouldn't grow. Okay, now, out of the water maybe, these little crawly things start coming out, little bugs and spiders and little things, and I consider that the lower animal kingdom, right? Then we have the actual human kingdom, which is all the squirrels and monkeys and all of this. Then we have actually a higher animal kingdom, which is the cat, the dog, the horse, the ape, elephants. They almost have self-consciousness. They're very, very intelligent. My two cats, they're almost human. They're in the process of changing to human. In their next life, they'll probably be human. Well, I don't know. Anyway, so we have this basic consciousness in plants, simple consciousness in animals. Then we have humans. Now, humanity is supposed to be part of the animal kingdom. I don't treat it that way. I reinvented the whole thing. I call it the human kingdom. Now, the difference between the human kingdom and the animal kingdom is that the human kingdom, there is self-consciousness. Now, self-consciousness is that I know what I'm saying right now. I also know that I am saying it, and I also know that I am me doing it, and I am conscious even when my body moves. That's the big difference. So, in life, for some reason, we have this evolution of this species. But it's not really the species, because the body of an animal is created by the type of consciousness that the animal has. So, the reason why the negativity in the world right now is because human self-consciousness is now giving way to a greater consciousness. And I'm happy to say that I've had a glimpse of it. And that is cosmic consciousness. It's something. It's quite something. Now, I've had several glimpses of this thing, even when I was in my middle 30s. But with this transformation that I had last January, as a result of working on Course 5A, it's something like that. You simply, with your reasoning, with your understanding, it has nothing to do with faith and goody-goody stuff and turn the other cheek all the malarkey. Using your mind, scientifically, something happens. You change. Everything that up to now, you reason with in a certain way, from this moment on, when you understood those keys, you're now looking at it with a slightly higher consciousness. So it's really an amazing, amazing course. And that's why we're living in this continuous evolution. Now, why? Well, never mind why right now. Couldn't prove it to you anyway. But I firmly believe, this is still in the section of belief for me, but I am pretty sure, and otherwise I wouldn't even say it, but I'm pretty sure that the top echelon of all of this is that the universe, not just this universe, all universes have a government. I firmly believe that why we're on Earth and why evolution is so that we can become so evolved that the basic consciousness of the universe, which I call universal beingness, looks at itself through humanity. Like looking at yourself in a mirror. You can't see yourself unless you look in a mirror. So I'll let you figure that one out. Okay, now let's get back to this path of hidden knowledge. That term, that name, path of hidden knowledge, goes back to, maybe 5,000 years ago. See, in those days, it was very dangerous to do what I'm doing now with you. I'm talking freely about all these things. And that's one good thing we have in the present time in this life. But in those days, you talk like this, you will be caught and burnt at the stake or tortured in order to admit that everything you said was wrong. Same thing happened to Galileo, I forgot which, Galileo Galilei, who said that the earth went around the sun. And then they forced him, and he got scared, and he had to admit that he was wrong. And when he finished admitting in court, he said under his breath, but it does run around the sun. So, in those days, they had secret groups. And they got together and studied the occult. This is called the occult. The occult has nothing to do with black magic and all that stuff. That's myths. Occult means hidden. But it was not because the material was hidden, because the people who joined these groups already had a reflection of these truths inside them. And they had to have a group of people with whom to study and evolve these truths. So that they would get together once in a while and gave the group various names. And that's why I picked up this name, the path of hidden knowledge. Actually, this weekend, either today or this weekend, my publishers are initiating a new website, not my own website, but a very beautiful website called Path of Hidden Knowledge, which will contain a lot of the information which I'm giving you right now. So, coming to present time, you borrowed those terms, Path of Hidden Knowledge, from those days. Now, how did I get involved in all this? I already told you that I was a music teacher, vocal coach, still am. And I decided to work more on self-empowerment in order for my students to get better. But now let me go back to when I was 6 years old. My father initiated me into this path of spirituality. My father was my real guru. He initiated me when I was 6 years old, and I'll tell you about it. He told me that if I wanted, I used to see him do yoga and exercises outside in the beautiful Madeira Island sun, and at dinner time he would always give these discourses on nature mainly. One of them I'll never forget, he said you shouldn't hurt animals because little animals are here in the process of evolution. Imagine a 5-year-old, 6-year-old listening to this stuff. And this is the reason why years ago I gave up eating meat, not because of some religious belief, not because of health, partly because of health. Because I believe that that is one of the greatest causes of illness, is eating meat. But the biggest reason I gave up meat is that I can't stand seeing animals suffer. I mean, can you imagine killing my beautiful cats and cook them and eat them? It's ridiculous. Anyway, told me things like that. Don't hurt the animals. And the reason why animals in the wild sometimes get angry and attack you is because they have learned through hundreds of thousands of years that man being a savage and hurting those animals. So they attack people. But if you make friends with them, they won't. Anyway, he told me that if I wanted something bad enough, he said, all you have to do is go someplace away from people. Be all alone. Say a little prayer. Close your eyes and visualize whatever you want, and it will come to you. Oh, really? Okay. I did just that. I used to go into the garden, put my face on my hands. This story, by the way, is in my autobiography, Transcending Their Lies. And then I would put the hands on a banana tree, and I would visualize a car, quite a big car, about this big, that I could get in and pedal with my feet and the car would go. Now, I don't know how many times I did that, but I really meant it. Well, my father said it, so it's got to be true. So, I don't know, maybe I did it 2-3 times, I don't know. 2 weeks later, a family that my grandmother worked for gave her that very car. And I was never the same since. The stuff that they teach in that famous book, The Secret, is very true. But I already knew that when I was 6 years old. I have been using that technique all my life, except for a period of bitterness that I went through a few years ago where I had nothing to do anymore with any of these things. But I came back to it. And I've used that technique for a long time. I have a beautiful bicycle. It's a 10-speed bike, brand new. It's a Schwinn. I attracted it. There it was, on the street. Somebody was throwing it out. I went to a lady, says, are you throwing that out? He says, yeah, it's no good. Okay, can I have it? Thank you. Brought it home, spent $10 on it to adjust a couple of things. I still have it. Now that was in the year 2000. Or 2001, something like that. I have it because I love bike riding. Okay, so all through the years, my father told me a lot of things that actually are secret. And he told me, and I was very inspired with his stories and his allegories. So I was brought up with that stuff. So all my life, I was into self-empowerment and self-improvement and spiritual things. Now, and this also is in my autobiography, due to a phobia that I had it since I was 16, that lasted almost a long, long time. It was pretty horrible. It happened to me on stage 2 or 3 times. It was pretty horrible. I don't want to go into it right now because it serves no purpose. But I learned this many years later, that phobias, exceptional fears, confusions, things of this nature have nothing to do with illness. That's what the doctors want to tell you and give you drugs for it. No, they're spiritual processes that you're going through. They are psychic, spiritual processes. I know because my first transformation was the highest point of that phobia. The night when I experienced the release, I was all alone. I thought I was going to die. Anyway, it's written around in a lot of the stuff that I wrote. The point I'm trying to make is that most of you who are good people. In other words, you don't hurt anybody, you do your work, you study, you practice your instrument, you sing, whatever you do, you paint, but you can't seem to get along with society. There's always something going wrong. I can tell you right now, there's nothing wrong with you. It's just that you are too sensitive for the present callous civilization. And most of the students that come to me for Course 5 and Course 5A are that type of students. Here's the beautiful thing. If you experienced a high after I finish telling you this, it's because it's true. No two things can occupy the same space. If you have a problem and you don't know what the problem is, and I tell you what the problem is, the very telling of that problem goes against the real problem, and two things can't occupy the same space. You have a release.